So let's get started, and then folks will join in. So welcome to the webinar. This is the third webinar in our series on data management, data quality, and analytics. Today's webinar is the topic is attacking data quality the right way with our expert Tom Redman. Dr. Redman, also known as the Data Doc, is the president of Data Quality Solutions that helps startups and multinationals, senior executives, and chief data officers and leaders buried deep in their organizations chart their course to data-driven futures with special emphasis on quality and analytics. Tom's most important article is Data's Credibility Problem that was published in Harvard Business Review in December 2013. He has a PhD in statistics and two patents. So with that, let me spend 30 seconds on providing an agenda for today's discussion, and then we'll dive right in. So in the first 30 minutes, we cover some fundamentals of data quality, to attack the quality, how data consumers, especially data scientists and BI developers, can benefit from good quality data, and then followed by what role do tools play in profiling and measurement of data quality. And finally, I'll have Tom close with 3 or 4 key takeaways for the audience. So that's the first 30 minutes. And then the second half of this webinar will be focused on addressing questions from the audience. So please post your questions in the chat window, and we will take them on after the first 30 minutes. Just some housekeeping. We are recording this session so that those who are not able to attend can review it later. So just wanted to put that out there. And like I said, please post your questions in the chat window and we'll get to those. So with that, Tom, welcome to our webinar.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jay.
I'm sure you're having a good time on the Jersey Shore. It's getting warm, so I hope you're looking forward to spring and summer.
Yeah, I think like everybody else, we're ready for spring, and we're ready to put COVID in the rearview mirror. And so hopefully we, meaning here in the Jersey Shore, and we collectively in your audience and throughout the whole world can do that in the next, I don't know, 6 or 8 months.
Sounds good. All right, so why don't we get started, Tom? So last week, actually, same time, we focused on the roles of people, especially the provocateurs in data quality. Today, let's take a step back and cover some fundamentals of data quality. So the first thing I want to ask you is, how would you define data quality at a high level? Like, what's your sort of definition?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and let's do this way. So suppose let's suppose. I mean, I don't have to suppose. Jay, what's your address?
1159 Meadow Court.
I just lost you a little bit. Could you say again?
Oh, 1159 Meadowlook Court in Reston, Virginia, 20194.
Thank you for that, Jay. But what I wanted was your email address.
Oh, Jay Zaidi at AlyData.com.
Yeah. Now, the reason I give this is I want to display a couple of things about quality, right? The first thing people think of when they think about quality data is the data correct? And I have absolutely no doubt that you gave me your correct address, right? But on the other hand, that's not what I wanted. Right. What I wanted was your email address. And that, by the way, it's a trick question, because had you given me your email address, right, I might have said, no, I want your longitude and latitude coordinates, or something like that. And so what it betrays is 2 things that are very important. First, this concept that it is there is a customer, the person using the data, right, and the specific thing that they're using the data for, right, and the data being relevant for for the task at hand, right? So at a very high level, quality involves the data being right, it being the right data for the task at hand, and the task at hand is very, very much defined by the customer. All right. And so I like this simple example because we have to get these things right. Quality is a broad concept. Right data, the data being correct in the eyes of the customer. And sort of if you get that and people get, understand that and understand that deeply, they're going to go a long way. It's really easy to dive down into accuracy and consistency and these kind of things and miss the point, the high level point, that the data has to be the right data. Excuse me, but it leads directly to a formal definition, which is that data are of high quality if they are fit for use by customers, and I'm very explicit, by customers, and people use data in different ways. They use it in operations, they use it in decision making, they use it in planning, they use it in data science. The same piece of data can have many customers, and those customers can have different quality requirements. And so when we talk about quality, it is always mating up a particular customer need with a particular piece of data and working through this, is this relevant? Is it correct? Kind of process to determine the quality of the data.
Got it. So with that definition of quality, why don't we discuss, or you share with us what your thoughts are around attacking this problem the right way? Because it can be a little, it can be tough for organizations to really figure out how to get data quality right. So what are your thoughts on that?
Look, there's a big schism here and a really important distinction. I mean, it is observably true that the way most organizations attack data quality is that whoever is using the data de facto is responsible for their quality. So you could be a salesperson in a company, and you are taking leads from the marketing department. They are sending you that data, and you get that data, and now you're supposed to follow up with these leads, but you look at it and you see errors in it. And so what do you naturally do as well? You've got to do your job. You've got to follow up on these leads. And so you spend a fraction of your day correcting the errors in the data that is coming, that you're getting from the sales department. I mean, there's even like a daisy chain of those things, right? Then sales does stuff and they turn things over to operations, and operations has trouble with the data. Eventually it all goes to finance. This business of finding and fixing errors in the data, it is embedded deep in people and organizations' psyche, right? It is the way they think about it. And so like a typical finance, you ask a CFO, what fraction of your organization's time is just spent dealing with mundane data issues, right? 3/4, half to 3/4. Or talk to a data scientist. What fraction of your time is spent dealing with data issues? 80% is the number that's going around. Something, the data science community has even created a specialist role called the data engineer to fix things up. And so the predominant way that we in our companies, in our government agencies, are attacking data quality is we are working to find and fix errors, and it is embedded in people's job. And the big problem with it, there's a couple of big problems with it. The first is that it takes a lot of time. It's really, really hard to do. and the worst problem of all is it never ends. So if the marketing team sent you a bunch of errors today and you had to fix them up, you can bet a nickel that you're going to get a bunch of errors tomorrow, right? And in fact, you're probably going to get more, right? There's more and more data. And so the alternative is to find out what is the source of those errors and to where in the process upstream are errors being created, and do you can call it a Six Sigma thing or a PQMI thing or a QIC thing, whatever your favorite technique for finding and eliminating the root causes of error, right? That is the way that data quality must be attacked. And by the way, I mean, it sounds so simple, right? But we have just embedded in our psyche. Well, part of my job is to deal with these errors, and sometimes it's hard. Like there's silos that get in the way. The data you use may have been created somewhere else, and so I mean, by the way, it's almost a philosophical point, right? You have to get out of reactively dealing with errors that have already been created to proactively preventing the tomorrow's errors kind of thing. We talked last time about provocateurs. So essentially what provocateurs are doing is, left on their own, organizations will continue to correct errors, as long as they exist. Provocateurs break that momentum and get their teams or their departments or their business units, right, attacking the root causes of the errors.
Got it. Okay, so we're talking about the provocateurs, but let's talk about the consumers of the data. So, and typically, a lot of work is done on the back end by data scientists or BI analysts or data analysts or business analysts in preparing the data, pre-processing the data to get it right before they can do whatever they're trying to do with it. And that ends up, they end up spending a lot of their time on those types of activities, which in my mind are not value add activities, right? I mean, these analysts, data scientists should be spending a bulk of their time on actually analyzing the data to derive the insights and the patterns and all of those. So how do we tackle that part? How do we address this last mile problem that we have with data quality?
The last mile problem?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I don't mean to pick on you, but I don't think it's a last mile problem. It's a first mile problem. And if you let's just look at it. I mean, data science is really taking it on the chin now, right? The sort of statistics that are out there are that the data scientists spend half of their time, right, dealing with these quality issues, and then on the back end, it's only 10 or 15% of models are making it into production, right? So we're wasting a lot of time, and we're not, and data scientists are not being productive at all. And so part of the problem is people know there's problems in the data, and so they they're skeptical about these products the data scientists are producing. Okay, I think that if you're a data scientist, I want to say two things here. First of all, I mean, you're no different than the finance person who is taking in errors from upstream. You've got to find and root out the causes of error. I mean, there's nothing special about you. But let's build on it. I mean, let's think about like a data science algorithm or a model as a product. All right.
Yeah.
And how do manufacturers or assemblers of physical product, what do they do, right? I mean, if you're an auto manufacturer, do you order side panels? And then when the side panels come in with dings in them, right? Do you have a little shop where you belt, you bang out those dings and put them in the car, or you put it on and then notice the ding and so forth? No, you don't do that at all. You work up into your supply chain, right? You figure out what the requirements are for the product, for the components that you want to use, and you work with the suppliers to help them meet that. Okay. And that whole business, I mean, every time it's been tried, right, that I'm aware of, it's the data supply chain, right? Data scientists, others manage the data supply chain. They get far better data coming in, right, pretty darn quickly. All right, pretty darn quickly. And so this business of managing the supply chain, if you're a data science, I don't want to say a data scientist, but a data science team, right? A fraction of your effort needs to be devoted to managing the supply chain. And when I say a fraction, I mean maybe you're devoting 80% to dealing with bad data now. So maybe you can cut that down to 20% and get better data. Okay. And that, by the way, is the thing that people have to see. I mean, this is not it is not about some sort of philosophy. It is about getting better data for less money, right? There is a very important sense in which high quality data saves money, and if you're a data scientist, it is I don't want to say criminal if you're not doing it, but you're not doing your job, right? Because you are not doing what you need to do to produce the products that are going to get built into into practice and serve your company well.
So there seems to be, we talk about sort of the data producers and consumers. What is the responsibility of each? Like in some cases, I noticed that the consumers do not provide feedback or don't communicate issues to the producer or to the person that's creating it, and that sort of results in that problem persisting, right? Because the person who's creating it is not aware of the fact that something bad is happening
Yeah,
downstream.
I mean, it's a really important question, Jay. I mean, first, let me just pick on you a little bit. Okay, data is not consumed when somebody uses it, right? So the consumer is not the right word there, right? Consumer means something's consumed. So I use the term customer,
Customer, yep,
right?
yep, yep.
And we started this seminar, this webinar, with me asking you your address, and imagine if I'd say, okay, you gave me your address. Well, once again, he didn't understand. I'll go find his email address, kind of thing, right? I mean, and so you would have no hope unless I provided that feedback. Okay, and so your question was, well, what is the responsibility of a customer? Okay, and I mean, let's not make this more complicated than it is. Well, the first thing is you have to recognize you're a customer, right? You have to recognize that you're going to have to figure out what you want, and you're going to have to find out where the stuff you need is coming from, and you're going to have to sit down and explain your requirements. And then this whole business of, well, what's working, what's not working. We may have to put some measurements in place. We may have to actively manage that supply chain with the creator. You use the term producer. I don't object to that term, but with the creator or producer. And if you don't do those things, you have no expectation of high quality data. The most of the provocateurs that I mentioned, they were in the customer role. They were in the role of, hey, we're wasting a lot of time doing this. It's not working very well. is there another way kind of thing.
Yeah, good points, Tom. So, so now that we've covered sort of the definition of data quality, we've covered the sort of roles and responsibilities of the data producer and the customer, and you've also shared some examples of how we can address it. There is this lingering question in terms of some tooling, right? Because we want to automate some of this measurement, if you may, or identification of data anomalies, et cetera, without a lot of human intervention and not of hand-coded rules, for example, because that becomes quite challenging and difficult to manage. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know there's lots and lots of tools in the marketplace out there that are meant for data quality. But for the audience, can you highlight some of the key sort of capabilities you would look for in a tool that would enable some of the work that we are talking about here?
Yes, I can do that. Can I answer that in two parts?
Sure.
Some years ago, I invented something called the Friday afternoon measurement, and it was in response to, I was consulting with a company, and they weren't sure whether data quality was a big deal or not, and I said, let's measure it. And so they said, that sounds like a lot of work, right? We're going to have to buy a tool, and and that's going to cost a bunch of money, and we'll have to go through a procurement, and that's going to take a bunch of time, and and then we're going to have to write these rules. I mean, this is going to be like, we're just never going to rally behind the idea of getting a tool. And so the question was, can we get some indication faster, right? And I thought about that for a minute, and I came up with this thing called the Friday afternoon technique. And if you'll let me share my screen, I'd like to go over the Friday afternoon technique, because it has proven remarkably powerful and remarkably easy for people to do. And the reason I want to do this is you ask, well, what should a tool do, right? Well, I want to use this to show what a tool would do. So will you bear with me for 2 minutes and let me share my screen?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Do you see a slide called the Friday afternoon measurement protocol?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when I first just started working on this, I didn't call it the Friday afternoon thing, but then somebody said they would do it on a Friday afternoon rather than going for drinks. And so it got the name, the Friday afternoon measurement. And so the basic idea is this protocol is whatever you do, take the last 100 occurrences of it and assemble the data associated with that, the most important data, and then do that on Thursday, and then on Friday get a couple of people together in a room and give them all a red pen and work line by line and mark the obvious errors. And then the last step is count stuff and summarize stuff. And so, here's an example. I have a fictitious company called the Upscale Sweater Company that I use to illustrate a lot of things. But anyway, so here's a bunch of data collected on the 1st of October in Upscale Sweater Company. It was it's the people ordering sweaters. You can see that in record A, Jane Doe ordered a sweater. Somehow the size she ordered didn't make it in there. She ordered a light blue sweater. And Upscale Sweater Company is based in Ireland, and so the price is in euros, and so you can see that one costs 129 bones. And so here's the last 100 records, and then everybody has a pen, and they go through and they color in the things that are obvious errors. And so obviously we can't sell a sweater with a null size on it. You have to know a little bit about the process to know we sell S, M, Ls, XLs, and double XLs, but we don't sell triple XLs. And by the way, we don't sell red sweaters anymore, right? That color is no longer hip, kind of thing. So, people are just working line by line. This is, it takes about an hour or 90 minutes to do. After you've worked line by line, then you add a column, record perfect or not. Basically, it means is there any red or not? You can see that there's red in the first row, so that record's not perfect. Count that as a no. There's no red in the second one, so that one gets a yes. There's 2 reds in the third one, that gets a no. There's no double counting here, so it's just one no kind of thing. And so now we're into the count stuff stage, and now I've counted the number of perfects, and I got 67. And then I count the errors in each of associated with each of the attributes. And you can see that, there were 24 errors in size and 5 errors in color and 2 in amount and so forth, right? Kind of thing. And now the interpretation of this thing. And look, our data quality is 67. Our data quality measurement is 67. But it is closely interpreted with, here is our customer orders. The last 100 orders, we only got the data right for 67 of them. We can't complete these 33 orders unless we fix up the data. Okay. And so the question about is this an issue? Well, it's not. There's no hard interpretation of data quality equals 67%. We can't complete our work, a simple operation, a third of the time. Okay, so yes, there is a problem, and what this betrays is a lot of things I like to see in data quality measures. First of all, the measurement is associated with the work. Okay, the second thing is it is the work as was done today, kind of thing. Right now, we could do this again, yesterday and the next day and so forth, and form a time series plot, if we will. The third thing I like about this is the human eye. It turns out people, right, the human eye, people are remarkably effective, far more effective at business rules than finding errors. And almost everyone, when they go through this process, they say, well, 98 of the records we all agreed upon. And then there were 2, and we had a long discussion on whether it was an error or not. The third thing I like about this measurement is it's there may be errors you miss. Okay, but if you counted an error, if somebody says it's an error, it is an error. So I mean, it's an upper bound on how good the data is in some respects. So and I find that people, when they do this and they go through this exercise and they have to put a red mark there, it reminds them of when they were in 3rd grade and their teacher gave them a red mark. And then the other thing I like about it is, well, what are we going to do? And the answer here is you got to go after size, right? Size is the first problem to go after. And so those are the features that I like to see when people automate their data quality measurement. And it's so lots of measurements day by day by day. It's really hard to have business rules that are as good as the human eye. Prescriptive in the sense of, where do you go to find where should we be looking for root causes of error? So by the way, the one thing that automated measurements can't match is just the team aspect of doing this. I urge everybody who's listening to go make a Friday afternoon measurement. There's just so many things to learn in doing it. So anyway, So I think that answers your question, Jay. The features to look for as a summary of something. Well, it's Tuesday, so literally people can do this on Friday.
No, that's an excellent example and methodology, Tom. Um, so to summarize, what you're saying is it is advisable for organizations to get the appropriate people together and go through this exercise, because it forces you to think through some of the aspects of data quality. It also identifies some of the root causes, or gets people talking about the root causes of why this might be happening. And then finally, you really can't fix things unless you can measure them. So you have a methodology here that allows organizations to start measuring sort of what the overall quality of a data set is, or a subset of data is, and then take the appropriate actions. So I think this is a very valuable exercise. Is this something that you've published, Tom?
Yes, right. So
Okay.
Right, and there's links to a video on how to do this, and some of my HBR articles have featured this. Let me say one more thing about it, Jay. Right. So when I do this, when I'm teaching or in consulting, I try to ask people, well, how good does your data need to be? And nobody has ever said less than high 90s. Right. It's like, well, these are healthcare data. If these data aren't perfect, people die. Right. These data about money. If it's not perfect, then bad things happen. But the fact of the matter is I've been doing this for a long time, and the average score people get is in the 50s. Okay. And there's only a few percent in the high 90s. Right. So part of the purpose of this exercise is to, people have this opinion that they're up here when they're down here. And as you were saying, you can't manage anything without knowing where you really stand. So, measurements are part and parcel to this. One of the weaknesses in most of the tools is they're pretty good at saying, well, you got to go fix this error, this error, this error. They're better at automating the fixing than they are at supporting the root cause work to make the errors go away.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. So with that, we are down to your closing 3 or 4 key takeaways for the audience before we dive into the questions from the audience. So if you could kindly summarize for us. I mean, we covered a lot of material over the last 37 minutes or so. It would be great if you could highlight the 3 or 4 major sort of takeaways that you want for the audience, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Yeah. So I think the first thing I'd like to say is that you simply have to get yourself out of the bad habit of finding and fixing errors and into the habit of preventing them at the source. You must do that. You're not going to have high quality data unless you do so. The second thing is just the roles of customers and creators are so important in doing that. And I think the rest of the stuff, I mean, it's just like, it's kind of like management 101. I mean, you need measurements, right? You need people to understand what they're supposed to do. You need tools to automate and do things faster. And I guess the last thing I'm going to say is too many data teams, too many people trying to address data quality. Think first about what tool do we need, and not enough about how are we going to attack the problem. And that's a mistake. If you don't attack the problem correctly, it really doesn't matter what tool you use.
Yeah, I totally agree. So based on what you've shared so far, Tom, there's lots of different components to this. It's the concept of the producer and the customer. It's the concept of sort of the roles and responsibility of each party, and kind of agreeing on what is it that the customer really wants, and then making sure that the producer is producing that. The concept of measuring quality so that you can figure out where you're at and what needs to be done. You also highlighted the fact that organizations should start addressing data quality at the source to try and prevent those issues before they get through the door, rather than trying to tackle them reactively. We also talked about automating some of this through using tools that are available in the marketplace, and then using a combination of tools as well as human expertise, domain knowledge, and the ability to do some root cause analysis and some solutioning to solve the problems. So great discussion, Tom. Thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts. So with that, let me go to the first question from Josh. Is it reasonable to have one single data model with one data point that fills every customer's needs throughout an organization? If so, how? Currently, we transform the data for each customer.
So when you say like, so Josh, let me maybe a little bit back and forth on this. I mean, look, the practical reality is each customer has different needs, and to think that you're going to satisfy all of their needs with exactly the same data seems to me to be, it seems to me to be a fool's errand. Okay. Right. I mean, you may have 100 customers, and they may have a bunch of different needs, and you may be faced with the practical reality that you can only meet 10 of their needs, and so you have to rank order customers and meet the 10. But and by the way, this is the great thing about data. I mean, data is not like a physical product. It's just so much harder to manipulate a physical product compared to data.
So to tackle the question that Josh is raising, right, which is a very important one, Tom. How do most organizations have limited capacity, right? From a data.
All organizations have limited capacity.
Yeah. So how do you tackle this? Because a data quality function, for example, within an organization might be supporting, let's say, a dozen or different departments, right? And they may be inundated with lots and lots of data quality problems. How do they go about addressing those without causing a lot of consternation on the part of the business team or the data customers, and building credibility? Because that is a challenge, right?
So look, I mean, I'm going to go back to first principles, and then I'm going to come to the practical reality, right? But so the most important roles in data quality are the customer, the creator, and it can be a data quality team that is connecting those things, right? It can be hard for creators and customers to know who each other is. But the practical reality right now is most customers are spending a quarter, a half, if you're in data science, 80% of your team dealing with data quality issues. All right. They're spending those dealing with data quality issues, and the cost to the organization is enormous. The cost to the organization is enormous. And what we want to do is we want to reduce that total cost. And we want to reduce that total cost by creating data correctly over here. Now, the fact of the matter is almost all the time, it doesn't take any added effort to create data correctly as to create it incorrectly. Right. You do have to find and eliminate the root causes of error. Maybe people don't know what they're supposed to do. Maybe you have to calibrate some equipment. I mean, those kinds of things. But when you say organizations have limited resources, the fact of the matter is they are wasting incredible amounts of those resources on data quality issues. And you used the term early on, non-value added work, right? Another way to look at that is see that when somebody is coming in and correcting stuff just so they can do their job is non-value added work. It's an important insight. And so what the data quality teams have to do is they have to get customers to see that. And they have to get customers to see that they have to make the investment and figuring out what they want. I mean, no data quality team can tell a customer what they need, kind of thing. And so that's the value proposition. And data quality teams have to sell that value proposition, and they have to sell it every day. Okay, that is the secret to getting after this.
Got it. Yeah, so it's a it's a situation where combination of sort of scaling the program using some automation as well as maybe prioritizing the needs, right, in collaboration with the customers, or prioritizing these issues may be helpful, right? Because of the constraints, the bandwidth constraints.
Yeah, I guess I think about it a little bit differently. I mean, so, if I ask you, what kind of car you want, and, and you're vague, and then somehow I deliver you a car, and you go, well, you delivered me a blue car, I wanted a red one, kind of thing. And then you go ahead and paint the car red because it's the color you want. And so like, Jay, you didn't tell me you wanted a red car, kind of thing. I mean, yeah. That's not something that you can scale. Right? You figuring out what you want is you and you individually and you alone. And I, as the quality team, can't tell you what kind of car you want. I can point out to you that if we can work together and you can figure out you want a red car instead of a blue one, that it'll save you the trouble of painting your new car a different color. Right? But ultimately the work of you figuring out what you want is about, what fits into your business, right? What are you trying to do for your customers and, further downstream as well. So I mean, I'm kind of pushing back. We want to scale when we have working processes, but we don't want to scale processes that aren't working. And the way most organizations are attacking data quality is not working. They should not think about scaling things that don't work.
Good point. Yeah. Okay. Josh, if you have any other questions, please keep them coming. So I have a question for you, Tom. Based on your experience, you worked in various verticals, oil and gas, healthcare, financial services, etc. Can you share your thoughts in terms of some common patterns or themes that you've noticed, and sort of some ideas of how and those verticals can benefit from sort of those themes, and then the solutions to those themes, if you may? I don't know.
So look, the voice channel died for a minute, or the audio channel. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah. So what I was saying, Tom, is you worked in various verticals, right? Oil and gas, healthcare, financial services, federal and state government. Can you elaborate or kind of share any themes or patterns that you saw within each vertical, right, in terms of data quality challenges, and then any general sort of suggestions or recommendations in terms of other companies in those verticals, how they can benefit from those, the observations you have, and some of the potential sort of recommendations you might make?
Well, I think the first observation I want to make is I actually started out in telecom, and then when I hung up my shingle, my first clients were in financial services, and I was really concerned that what I'd learned in telecom was not going to be relevant in financial services. And but largely the same pattern held up. Largely people were working within their silos. Largely nobody comes into work and says, I'm going to do stuff today that's going to foul me up, kind of thing, right? It's not that. I mean, it's data coming from other departments, and a consistent pattern was that people don't want to reach across their silos, and there's a lot of fear and anxiety around that and so forth. But just an overarching theme was once they tried it, how easy it was, and an overarching theme was most of the problems, most of the root causes of the problems are stunningly simple. Um, Now, there are fantastically complex data quality problems. The people in marketing may think of a customer differently than the people in sales, and the people in risk management, think of it as the ultimate payer and things like that. Those problems are hard, but you ask for sort of differences. I mean, the first thing has been the overwhelming commonality in in um, in just the nature of the problems, and the suffocating impact of silos, and people not wanting to reach beyond their silos. Is that a fair answer?
Yeah. I mean, that was very, very helpful. Because I wanted, given your rich experience and the vast, knowledge in the space, I think, all of these points that you make resonate with me, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with the audience.
Right.
So we have about 8-9 minutes left, Tom, and I don't see any questions from the audience. So why don't you and I just chat and kind of brainstorm a little bit? So where do you think now that we have the volume velocity of data is growing significantly, the data quality challenges are going to grow as well with that, unless the organizations fix the first mile problem, as you mentioned,
Right.
and tackle this up front. But given the fact that you have sort of omni-channel data ingestion happening, right? You've got all sorts of activity, social media, transactional, IoT, etc. I think tackling it on the front end becomes rather difficult because of the format of the data, because of the number of channels, and the fact that there's lack of standardization, etc. So how do you think companies should tackle that? Or what should they be looking at doing on the front end to try and get their arms around this problem?
So I like the way you crystallize that, Jay. I mean, the fact of the matter is a company may have thousands of external sources, and and thousands of internal sources, but but the first thing, I mean, it's again the comparison. And so we have to understand tackling it on the back end does not work. Okay. It hasn't worked when there were relatively few sources, and there is absolutely no indication that which doesn't work in on a few sources is somehow magically going to solve the problem when there's lots of them. So something being difficult is a way better problem than something being impossible. And once again, I mean, so this is just something that you have to realize. And so I mean, yeah, of course it's hard, but the hard part is not fixing the problems. The hard part is rearranging the way you're tackling the problem. Again, I mean, most of the root causes of these problems are so simple, and they go away fast.
Got it. Any other parting thoughts Tom, in the last few minutes we have, anything you want to share from, I know you've been writing chapters of a book recently. Any interesting anecdotes or any topics you want to share from that for the
Well,
audience?
let me say to make one other point, and that is you know, like we tend to think about this, you know, this data quality stuff as deep and esoteric, right? And it's, you know, and it's a lot in the details, but I mean, I look at I made a, you know, a great discovery maybe 20 years ago that I didn't have to understand anything technical to see data quality problems. All I had to do was read the newspaper. Okay, all I had to do, all I had to do was read the newspaper. And let's look at some. Let me just summarize some data quality problems that have been in the news, and big things of, you know, existential worries for companies, and you know, societal impacts. And the first is COVID deaths. Okay, well, how many people have died of COVID in the U.S.? There was a great piece in the Economist a couple of weeks ago when we passed the 500,000 mark, and I'm doing this from memory, but they kind of said, you know, well, gee, in some respects, 500,000 is just a number, but it's probably an undercount by 100,000 or more. Okay, and and then, so, like, you know, how are we going to manage this? How are we going to get out of this if we don't know how many people have had the disease, and where they are, and how old they are, and whether they're rich or poor or black or white, um these sorts of things. And so, and like with respect to vaccines, you know, like, are we tracking, so whether or not we're reaching all the communities that we need to reach? I mean, these are problems of international importance. The front page of the New York Times on Sunday, you know, the Sunday paper kind of thing, it had a feature, and then it went into a full 2 pages in the front section of the paper on data quality issue and rating nursing homes. And evidently the government put in some five-star process that's supposed to help people rate nursing homes, help understand how good nursing homes are, so they can get their families the best care. And but then the data issues going into that, and so the data is just wrong, and in some cases falsified. Um, you know, not too long ago, there was, you may have heard that some Boeing Max planes, 737 Max, if I'm correct about the name, but they crashed, and they crashed because the angle of attack sensors on them were indicating that the plane was climbing too fast when it was flying level, and the autopilot pushed the nose down. I mean, so we're not talking about anything that's esoteric here. We are talking about things that are front and center. So whether we as a company, if you're Boeing, or we as a public in the United States, or you know, whatever country you're from, are going to survive. And these, you know, these ideas that we're talking about, you know, they're not just at the database level, but they're at the top line the decision level for leaders of every single organization. And so, look, I recognize, one of the things I recognize about myself is I, you know, I proudly wear the badge, the world's most passionate advocate for data quality, and I recognize that, you know, I'm extreme on this, but I may be extreme, but I also think I'm correct. Uh, and these issues, they are holding everything we want to do back. We're holding everything you want to do as a company back. They're holding things we want to do as a society back. And in many cases, not just holding us back, they're pointing us in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so excuse me for getting on my soapbox for a couple of minutes, but this is the way I really look at it. And this is the importance that needed to be attached to it. And, you know, your question about, well, how do we do it at scale? Well, Okay, the answer is it is an existential threat, and we have to get on it, and that means lots and lots of people.
Yep. Great discussion, great conversation, Tom. We are at the tail end. We have about 30 seconds left. So I wanted to thank you for being our guest today and for sharing your thoughts and insights. For those in the audience, please feel free to reach out to Tom or myself. Offline, we'll be happy to talk to you and address any specific questions you might have. Happy to engage and happy to share. So with that, I would like to close our webinar for today. Thank you again, Tom. Thanks to all the attendees, and look forward to the next set of webinars on data governance and analytics that are coming up.
Yep. Thank you, Jay, for having me, and thanks to the audience for spending an hour of their day.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.